Today in our road to Unicum, we review the Type 59. This is the infamous Tier 8 Chinese premium medium tank that had the community in a big uproar several years ago, and it has a reputation for being extremely overpowered. But as we're going to see in the video, in 2017, it's a solid tank, but it's reasonably balanced, and I'll talk about why. Now, when the tank was originally released, the matchmaking was different, and it used to face Tier 5 and 6 tanks, as well as the gold ammo mechanic back then was only acquirable with gold. So a lot of Tier 5 and Tier 6 drivers had trouble penetrating this tank. You need about 165 millimeters of penetration to reliably penetrate the front of the tank. That's probably like a 50-50 pen roll, and anything above that will give you a pretty good chance. In 2017, a lot has changed. There have been a lot of new Tier 8 tanks that have been released, especially the overpowered Tier 8 premiums. So a lot of tanks have north of 180 millimeters of penetration, and what I found as a new driver to this tank is that you don't want to force the hull armor to save you. It'll bounce shots if you're angled or leaning back when you're hull down, but you don't want to do what I used to do, which was to engage frontally too aggressively. And my survival rate in this tank is like 37%, which is lower than for most of my other tanks. It's like over 20% below my win rate. The tank has a few really good qualities that are worth noting, and I'll stop really quickly to comment on our LTTBs. We have a pair of LTTBs who are light tanks. The first took too high and exposed on line for spotting. He went down the 5 lane and he was advancing on a 1390, which is an autoloader, which makes no sense. And then our second LTTB drives up onto this ridge and stops to fire on tanks. So he's probably in the field of fire of like 5 or 6 tanks and just gets absolutely wrecked. So we're in the hole, 2 tanks and none right off the bat. Now, the Type 59 has unusually good max gun depression from the front of about 7 degrees, and so you can play ridge lines like this really well. Gentle slopes are a really good friend of the Type 59. The gun has really long aim time, but you can offset that by pre-aiming where tanks are going to be, or if you've got a camo sniping situation where the opposing tank doesn't see you and you've got time to fully aim in. The turret is very strong. The front of the turret and the cupolas, while they are pennable, are a pretty small target, especially at this range. So you can very safely engage tanks when you're hull down like this and really not exposing your hull armor. The tank has relatively poor accuracy for a medium tank, and the silver penetration of 181. It's functional, but it's not great. But really the big issue with the gun is the handling is poor. You can see it takes a long time to aim in. Now, I'm able to farm these guys for some damage because they keep pushing up and exposing their sides to me. They're trying to kill that FE4202, and you see he just got hit by Artie. Now, the only tank that can hit me and penetrate me or damage me reliably while I'm sitting on the left side of this slope is going to be their Artie. So if he had been clicking on me, then I would be forced to relocate or wiggle a lot more. But what their Artie is trying to do, and this is the smart play, is to help clear the edge, that FE4202. You'll see in a moment here, I keep getting spotted obviously whenever I fire, and their Type 59 is aiming at me, and while we are mirror tanks, my position is one of strength, because in order for him to shoot me, he's having to come, from my viewpoint, right to left up the slope, and he's exposing his side armor, which is a very easy penetration as long as I can hit it. I do tend to snapshot quite a bit in the Type 59 because the gun handling is so poor, and that's just the reality of playing a tank like this. It's one of the reasons why I've struggled with it. Like if you try to play this like a brawling tank, what you'll find a lot is that the gun's simply not accurate enough to snapshot and hit weak spots reliably. But like I said, your frontal hull armor is like 50-50 for blocking shots of about 165 penetration. You can see that on tanks.gg. Now, since I don't have any shots, I'm shooting a building to try to get rid of that soft cover, so if that Super Pershing backs up, we'll be able to hit his rear. My tanks aren't really deployed too smartly. Like there's a Tier 8 Swedish tank destroyer that's toward the left, but the problem is he's sitting right out in the open, so he's very exposed. And playing a tank destroyer that has no turret, if you can see them and shoot them, and you're facing a turreted tank, they can likely shoot you. Now, looks like probably our M46 has spotted a T-34-2. It's a Tier 8 Chinese medium tank, and so we finally got some shots on some of their snipers back up on the hill. It is from this distance kind of a long shot, and there the opposing driver stopped when I was firing. I thought he'd keep moving up the hill, so I'm not getting any penetrating shots, but it's really important to lay some damage on him since he's out in the open. A couple other things about the Type 59. It has pretty average mobility for a medium tanker, actually below average for its tier. So, the top speed is decent, but its acceleration and its agility are very average, and I've actually kind of compared it to other medium tanks. Like I found it has about the same degree of acceleration as a T-34-85, which is a tier 6 Russian medium. Now at this point, the only tank that we've got left on this northwest corner is our STRV, and so I'm going to go try to help him now. The interesting thing about this game is that if you find a good field of fire and you're not being too passive, it's okay to sit there and hang out and wait for shots. So at this point, I've gotten five penetrating shots, which is solid. At this point, though, just hanging in the back is going to be too passive, and I'm trying to bait this Type 59 driver into a bad shot. So he wastes his shot, and then the STRV, our friendly Artie and I, put him down. I do get clicked by their Artie finally, given my position, and we are in a tough spot here. Our dead pilot medium tank keeps clicking on the area by their sniper's hill, and the problem is I can't go there because of their 1390. If I try to push straight across the AB lines, I might be okay from a frontal perspective in terms of being able to bounce some of the fire, but the 1390 will have freedom to get the first shot advantage and just aim at me without having to move while shooting at my side hull. So I can't advance, and really what we've got to do is get rid of that 1390. Now our M46 does the right thing in pushing around to try to kill him, but somehow he seems to eat 2 shots before he can finish off the 1390. But thankfully one of our tier 9 TDs finishes the 1390. That's a huge deal. So we are down a tank. They've won city pretty convincingly, and I make the decision to go ahead and push across field. Now I'm doing this because in a straight up 1v1 situation, I should be able to take out the T-34-2 pretty reliably because his frontal hull armor isn't that strong, and I should be able to penetrate as long as I'm aiming properly. Now, once I've committed going downhill, or right as I did that, their Type 95 was spotted over in city. The problem with the Type 95 is, unless he's giving me really easy shots on his side or his rear, there's almost impossible with the Type 59's accuracy for me to penetrate him. Now, the M41's firing HE manages to track me, and I take my time aiming in to finish him off. That's really big. That was their last light tank, but I get smacked by their Artie in the open field, and he's obviously going to be super motivated to target me because I am now the nearest tank to him. As soon as I was tracked, I popped that repair kit so I could I really wanted to get to the crown of this hill where I would be totally turret down, or at least hull down, so that the T-32 doesn't really have a good chance at firing at me. Now, what I was hoping for is this T-34-2 driver has been camping really hard. Generally speaking, those tend to be the less skilled players, especially if they're in a tank like a medium tank where he should be flexing and moving around a bit more. And so what I was hoping is he would be right around here, like around these trees, so I'd be able to fire at him back down the hill a little bit so that try to bait a bad shot into my turret. But what he ends up doing, which is a smart thing to do, is backing up by the building. Now he is overexposing his side, so that's an easy shot, and he gets a little bit of an easy a high penetration roll because I'm not overexposing my side, but this is nearly disastrous. I get tracked by the Artie, it spins me around. I manage to snapshot the opposing tank, but an IS-6 gets spotted. I immediately, like on a twitch reaction, turn to face my turret facing toward him, and I can't stay where I am now because I'm caught in 2 fields of fire, plus the Artie's firing at me. And as I drive away, I'm very conscious of trying to point my turret toward him, so I bounce 2 straight shots against the front of my turret and manage to get away. And obviously those are kill shots, if they penetrate, because my hit points are so low. Now, because, in medium tanks, the reload is fairly quick, I tend to snapshot quite a bit, and, even more so because it takes a long time to aim in, with this particular gun. Generally speaking, I'll only fully aim in if the target is not looking at me. I've got vision control advantage, so I've spotted them, I'm camo sniping and they don't see me. Or I'm coming up behind them and have the luxury of aiming in. Now the great news is we've spotted their Artie, and so while their Artie has been picking on me and hit me a few times, he's going to be super concerned about the tier 9 tank destroyers that are in his face, and those SRVs are really strong tanks. Over penetration of 300, excellent DPM, very mobile, and they're sloped so that they can actually bounce a lot of shells unless you manage to hit them on their cupola, which is a relatively small target. Now, what I can't forget about is this T-34-2. While I'd like to flex over, toward my right and shoot at the IS-6, I can't do so without exposing myself to the T-34-2. So what I'm doing is playing very carefully. Now that their arty is dead, we've got a 3 tanks to 2 advantage, plus we've got a friendly arty, and so I'm going to move very carefully up and take my time peeking out very slowly. And mainly what I'm trying to do is just prevent this T-34-2 from, flanking us. And as I cross over here, I'm careful not to step into the cap. This game is not going to be decided by capping. Cap pressure does nothing except put me in a position where I might get shot. And there I did snapshot instead of aiming in fully. In a case where if I have enough hit points there to survive one shot from him, I'll take my time fully aiming in, eat his shot potentially, hopefully bounce it, but potentially eat it, and then put my shell into him. But in that kind of case, what I've generally tried to do is, if I know that I'm one-shottable and they're looking my way, I'll snapshot as quickly as I can, as long as it's a shot where, in that case, like his side armor is exposed to me, so anything that hits him is likely going to penetrate and kill him. And with this tank's titanium turret and the nice gradual sloping ground here, I can leverage the 7 degrees of gun depression and whittle away this IS-6. And this right here is hilarious. This is Type 59 gun handling in a nutshell. Like, I literally dirt shot and was mostly aimed in. So I missed the kill shot. And all I need to do is keep this guy looking toward me. Like, I'm going to take a shot here in a moment at his very slim cupolas. This is a very low percentage shot. But, he knows I'm still looking at him, and this will buy time for one of my STRVs to finish him off. So this wasn't the game where I necessarily did a lot of damage, but I started from that position of strength, on the hill, on the left side of that first hill where I could play hull down, and as long as their arty's not firing at me and I have tanks to shoot at, it's a reasonably good place to be. Our tier 9s did a really good job, especially that platoon of more than pulling their weight and carrying this battle, and that made it a lot easier for us. And then the main thing was I managed to stay alive, even though I took some somewhat unfortunate shots from arty and getting penned from the T-34-2. But it was enough to help us win the match. If you guys are interested in me reviewing more premium tanks, gifts are always appreciated and welcome. I've only bought one premium tank on this account, and that was the FCM50T, which I personally hated, even though a lot of people love it, and I think it sucks in the current meta, is not worth playing. But aside from that, let me know if you want me to take a look at another premium tank. Take care.